Hey everybody, welcome to AvidMax Fly Tying Tuesdays. My name is Brady Laher, and today we're going to show you how to tie a Quasimodo Copper John. So a nice traditional pattern, but in this instant we're going to tie it on a curved shank hook just to give it a like profile, kind of insinuates movement in the water. So a cool little option, just a slight play on the old classic. To start out, I have my hook there in the vise, and that's the 2488H. Awesome nymph hook from Tiemco. Then I'm using just a countersunk bead. This is the copper color. That's 7/64" size on a size 14 hook today. And then I have my thread, the UTC 70 in black, and that's definitely key to this pattern. Helps lay flat and makes it so that when you go to wrap that wire, you can get it nice and flat, nice and touching. So from there, we're gonna go ahead and do our tails first. And the tails on this guy are going to be just some biots, using some goose biots here. And I'm going to go ahead and take 2 of these and pair them up. We'll make sure that their concaves are facing away from each other so that when you tie them in, they stay that way. And then we'll go ahead and kind of find our length here, looking at that hook shank. And we'll transfer that into our other hand and throw them on. So we'll secure these right on in place. Do a couple of loose wraps, make sure they're going to stay on either side, and then you can cinch that right in place. So I'm going to work back and down and get those to kind of stay on either side of the hook shank. Use my fingers to keep them apart as I go on down. Just making sure that my thread wraps as I go are nice and smooth and consistent for when we come to bring that wire in. And on this pattern, I'm going to go down a little ways further than you normally would. We want that curvature to really be apparent. So right on down the hook shank past the barb, a little ways. And just playing with the tails as I go to keep them in the right position. If you give a nice snug on them, you might want to hold on to them a little bit so that they stick on up. And then we'll walk back on forward. Again, just making sure we have a nice smooth transition. I'll use those biots as I go forward, all the way up to where that thorax will be. And then I like to jump in front of them, just with a quick wrap, gets them to flare out 90 degrees. Makes it easy to clip that off. Nice and close on either side there. And then what I'll do is I'll back those thread wraps so I'm back on top, and then can cover it up nice and smooth. From there, we're going to add our wire, and for this it's just going to be some UTC copper wire. On this size I'm using small. You can get away with brassy as well. I feel like the small for this is a nice appropriate gauge. So we'll tie that in right on the side and up close to that thorax so that we can keep the consistency again with our thread wraps, laying that base to wrap the wire over top. And so all the way back down to our tail. And then we'll work it on forward again. Making sure not to move that tail around. And so right back on forward, nice and flat. And then I'll work just a little bit of a taper. So we'll go back down to the halfway point here and then walk on up for a slight taper to this buck. And there we can half hitch it in place, keep our thread from coming loose on us, and then we'll use our bobbin cradle here so that we can wrap our wire. So since it is a curved shank hook, it's going to work against you as you go, because on top it's going to want to separate because you're going to be closer on the bottom overall. So you really got to work it back as you're going around. So we'll do our first wrap there, making sure it's nice and touching, nice and close, and then just do our best to keep that all in place as we go forward. If it starts to work away from you, you can always kind of come in with your fingernail, push it on down on top, and then work on forward. As I come around the top, I like to kind of pull it almost right on top of that previous wrap, and that'll help snug it up as you come underneath and back over. So we'll go ahead and secure it with our thread. We'll come back a little bit and then we can break that on out of place. We'll just twist it out until it pops off. And then we'll walk on back over it just like so for our thorax region. So we'll let our thread hang there and grab our next material. So this is going to be a flashback version, so I'm going to tie in just a little bit of tinsel. This is the hairline pearlescent tinsel in medium size. You can go with the thick as well. You want a little more pop to your fly. I'm going to go ahead and put that in right on top here. We'll tie it on the side and sort of roll it over so that it lands right up top. And then we can hang that out of the way in our material clip, go to the next material, which is our scud backing. Doing the black scud back on this one. Lots of different options for this. And I like to just sort of trim up the tip just to give me kind of a nice easy pointed tie-in point there. So that'll hide away real nice and easy under the bead, snug it in place, and then walk back to that same position where that flash is hanging out waiting for us. And then we can leave that in place as well and tie in the next material. So a few materials here, but all good ones. The next being a little bit of peacock herl. And if you have one good peacock feather here, that's good. Sometimes I'll use two. This one has some nice character to it. I know it's going to flare out nicely, so I can get away with one. And I trimmed off the tip just to make it a little less brittle to work with, because it can be a very easy to break material. And once that's secured right on the side, I'm just going to even out my working area here slightly, not to build up too much bulk, just to make a nice easy transition. And once again, half hitch behind the bead. Then we'll go ahead and palmer that forward. And the legs on this are going to be a little bit of henback. So I have just the brown, dyed brown color, which is an awesome color for this. You could go natural. You use partridge as well, which is a pretty traditional material for the Copper John. But we'll pluck a feather, only need one, right off of the henback, and then I'm going to clip a V into it here. So we'll just sneak our scissors right up in the middle and clip that off so it's even on both sides, and that gives you a nice V to tie in there. So we'll take that feather, go right over the bead, and we'll pinch it on either side, and then I do a nice loose wrap to start, and then another loose wrap, and then you can pull down to snug it in place. You just want to avoid it from twisting on you too much. Keeping it on either side there. And then I'll always sneak in front of it before I come back in and clip that off. Do that on either side here. So these are going just past the thorax. You can play around, go a little bit longer, a little bit shorter, but traditionally just a little bit out past that thorax. So now we got legs going out either side, just like so. Those look pretty good, and then we can pull our backing over. And I'll do it in 2 steps. You can pull them both together. I just tend to do them in 2 different steps, make sure that they're nice and secure. So we'll pull that backing over, one on top and front, and then back over, and then we'll bring the flash up as well, and do the same, keep that nice and centered. Right on top, couple over, one in front, and then we can trim out that excess material. Pull a little bit on this scud back. You don't want to pull too much because it will recoil right back down in there. And if you have a little hanging over, that's okay. We'll kind of grab it, and then we're going to go ahead and finish over the top of this anyways. So it doesn't have to be too pretty right at this juncture. Let's go ahead and whip finish it, and then do our backing on it. Use some Solares, and just a little dab of Solares right on top. This is the thin viscosity. The Loon Thick works really well for this as well. Deer Creek diamond resin, just something that's not going to be so runny that it runs away from you. You want to be able to build a little bit of a backing. I'll kind of flip it over to give myself a little bit of time here. And we have ourselves a nice little Quasimodo Copper John. Great nymph pattern. It's an awesome attractor. You can fish it year round, lots of different sizes. This here is a 14. Take it all the way down to a 22 if you're brave and you can time that small. You need the extra small wire at that point. You can go bigger. You could do a size 10 for a nice big stonefly imitation, and just use that brassy size wire in that situation. But definitely a fly that's gained a lot of popularity due to its success, and one that deserves a spot in anybody's box.